Your salary is $167,000 a year. It took 2 decades of raises, promotions, and long weeks to get there. Most people would call that a very good income. Then you open your investment account and see something strange. The portfolio is worth about $2.48 million. At a 7% return, that amount can grow by roughly $173,000 in a normal year. That is more than your gross salary. It does not mean the account pays you $173,000 every year. Markets do not work like payroll. Some years will be better, some will be flat, some will erase hundreds of thousands on paper. But the scale has changed. Your job is no longer the largest financial engine you own. That is the part nobody tells you about when you start investing. At first, your paycheck does almost everything. It pays the bills, funds the account, and keeps the whole plan moving. Years later, the relationship can reverse. In this video, you will watch that shift happen from the beginning. You will see when your investments first start adding more than you contribute. You will see why reaching $1 million still may not be enough to beat a strong salary. You will also see what happens when the market drops right as your portfolio seems ready to catch your paycheck. Investment growth is not a salary replacement. It is less predictable and far more volatile. Still, once enough capital is working, your money can create more economic value in a normal year than your labor does. You still go to work the next morning. You answer emails and sit through the same meetings. Nothing outside your life announces the crossover. The shift is happening under the routine, where capital is quietly gaining ground too. 20 years earlier, your $90,000 salary dwarfed what your investments could produce. Now the portfolio has caught it. For the first time, the machine your salary spent years building has become larger than the salary itself. 20 years earlier, your salary is still doing almost all the work. You earn $90,000 a year, and your investment portfolio is worth about $150,000. At a 7% return, that portfolio might grow by roughly $10,500 in a normal year. Your job produces more than 8 times that amount before taxes. So the portfolio is not the engine yet. It is barely a helper. Your salary has 3 jobs. It pays for your life, supplies the money you invest, and keeps the plan alive long enough for compounding to matter. In the first year, about $30,000 goes into your 401k, Roth IRA, and brokerage account, including the employer match. That contribution matters far more than the market return. This is where many people misunderstand the early years. They look at a small portfolio and expect the investments to create meaningful income right away. But the numbers are not large enough yet. A 7% return on $150,000 is useful. A 7% return on $2 million is a completely different force. The strategy is not failing. The base is still being built. Your salary rises by about 3% a year. Contributions rise too, because part of each raise goes toward ownership instead of disappearing into a larger lifestyle. You still spend more over time. You just do not let every increase in pay become a permanent increase in cost. That matters because your salary is not competing with the portfolio yet. It is feeding it. Every contribution buys more assets. Those assets create future growth. That growth buys more assets without another hour from you. For now, labor remains the dominant machine. You work for the money. Then, some of that money goes to work for you. The balance between those two engines changes slowly at first. That can make the process feel unimpressive, but salary has a hidden role in the story. It is building the machine that may eventually outgrow it. And the first sign of that reversal arrives earlier than most people expect. That smaller crossover matters because capital is finally starting to add more each year than your new savings do. Your investments do not need to beat your salary first. They only need to start adding more each year than you can contribute yourself. Around year 9, the portfolio reaches about $614,000. You are contributing roughly $42,000 a year now, which already feels like a serious amount of money. Then the numbers do something new. At a 7% return, $614,000 can grow by about $43,000 in a normal year. For the first time, the portfolio can add more than you add yourself. That is the first crossover nobody celebrates. Your investments are not earning more than your salary yet. They are not even close. But they have become capable of building wealth faster than your annual contributions can. For years, the relationship was simple. You worked, saved, and pushed money into the account. The market helped, but your paycheck remained the main source of progress. Now, capital is beginning to match your effort. You still spend an entire year earning the money that funds your $42,000 contribution.
The portfolio does not commute, negotiate for a raise, or stay late at the office. It simply has enough scale to matter. A few years earlier, a $43,000 increase would have required a major promotion or an unusually aggressive savings year. Now, the same amount can appear from the capital already accumulated. You notice the difference because one side of the equation still depends on your calendar. The other depends on the size of what you already own. That is a different kind of growth. That does not mean every year will look like this. A bad market can wipe out several years of expected growth. A flat year can make the crossover disappear completely. So this is not salary replacement. It is a shift in who is doing more of the building. That distinction changes how you understand compounding. Compounding is not just the balance getting larger each year. It is the moment the capital base becomes large enough to contribute more to your future wealth than your fresh savings do. The machine is no longer waiting for you to feed it every dollar. It has started producing meaningful fuel of its own. And once that happens, the next question becomes unavoidable. If the portfolio can already outgrow your contributions, how long before it starts challenging the salary that created those contributions in the first place? By year 12, your portfolio is close to $892,000. Your salary has climbed to about $125,000, and both numbers now feel substantial. But the relationship between them has changed again. At a 7% return, the portfolio can grow by roughly $62,000 in a normal year. That is almost half of your gross salary, without another promotion or extra hour at work. This is where the scale starts to feel strange. A strong raise might add a few $1,000s to your annual pay. Your portfolio can now move by tens of thousands over the same period, simply because the capital base is larger. That does not make the portfolio more reliable than your job. It only means the amount at work has become large enough to matter in a new way. For years, you measured progress by what you could save from income. Now you begin measuring it by what the existing assets can produce on their own. That creates an important distinction. Reaching $1 million sounds like the obvious finish line. But if your salary is around $125,000, a 7% return on $1 million is only about $70,000. You can be a millionaire and still have labor producing far more than capital. The crossover is not tied to one magic net worth number. It depends on the relationship between how much you own and how much you earn. Someone making $60,000 can reach that point with a much smaller portfolio. Someone earning $200,000 needs far more capital before the same shift happens. That changes what the next milestone means. You are no longer asking whether the portfolio is large. You are asking how much economic weight it can carry compared with your job. At $892,000, the answer is becoming clear. Your investments are still behind your salary, but they are no longer far behind. In a normal year, they can already create an amount that once would have required a major career jump. A promotion can raise the value of your next paycheck. A large portfolio raises the amount every future percentage point can move. One rewards the next year of work. The other keeps building on every dollar that survived the years before it. This matters. And from here, the race becomes more interesting. Your salary will keep rising, but the portfolio now has one advantage your paycheck does not. It compounds on everything you built before. By year 15, your portfolio is worth about $1.25 million. Your salary has climbed to roughly $136,000, which still feels like serious money.
But now, a normal 7% year can add about $87,000 to the portfolio. That is not more than your salary. Yet, it is close enough to change how you see every raise. A promotion might lift your pay by 4 or 5%. On $136,000, that could mean another $6,000 before taxes. Useful money. But one normal year in the market can now move your portfolio by more than 10 times that amount. 3 years later, the gap gets smaller again. Your portfolio is around $1.7 million, while your salary is near $149,000. At 7%, the portfolio can grow by roughly $119,000. A single percentage point on $1.7 million is already worth $17,000. That does not mean the market is giving you a paycheck. It means scale is changing the race.
Your salary grows on your earning power. Promotions, experience, and better roles can push that number higher. Your portfolio grows on every dollar that survived the years before it. The larger the base becomes, the more each percentage point can move. That is the advantage capital slowly builds. You only have so many hours to sell. Even a strong career usually raises income in steps. Capital does not need a new title before the whole base can grow. It simply needs enough assets, enough time, and a market that eventually rewards ownership. This is not an argument against career growth. Your career created the contributions that built the portfolio in the first place. But the relationship has changed. Another raise still helps. Another year of ownership may now help more. That is why the race begins to feel unfair in the later years. Salary keeps improving, but it is climbing one rung at a time. The portfolio is compounding on the entire ladder you already built. At this point, you can finally see why investments can catch a salary that keeps rising. They are not winning because the returns suddenly became spectacular. They are winning because the base became enormous. The arithmetic is exciting, but it can also make you careless. A 7% assumption looks smooth on paper. Real markets never arrive that way. The next year makes this clear. And just as the portfolio starts looking strong enough to close the final gap, the market reminds you of something your salary rarely does. It can go backward. The year after the portfolio reaches $1.7 million, the market drops hard. Instead of gaining about $119,000, your investments fall roughly 20%. On paper, about $340,000 disappears. That loss is more than twice your annual salary. For the first time, the portfolio does not merely underperform your job. It produces less than nothing. Your salary still arrives every 2 weeks. Meetings continue. Bills get paid from predictable income. The portfolio behaves differently. A salary is tied to work you already performed. Investment returns depend on markets you cannot control. That difference suddenly matters more than any long-term average. For years, you watched capital close the gap with your paycheck. Now, one bad year appears to reverse the whole story. You start asking whether the comparison was misleading. If investments can lose $340,000 while your job still pays $149,000, can they really be called the bigger engine? The answer is yes, but only if you understand what kind of engine it is. Your salary is more reliable over short periods. It arrives on a schedule and gives you cash to spend immediately. Your portfolio is more powerful at scale, but far less predictable from year to year. That means a 7% expected return is not a second paycheck. You cannot safely assume the market owes you that amount every December. The decline also exposes a mistake you could have made earlier. If you had treated expected returns as income, this year it could have forced a sale. You feel the difference emotionally. Seeing a negative $340,000 hurts in a way a spreadsheet never prepares you for. It is larger than years of contributions and larger than 2 years of raises combined. Still, you do not sell. Your salary covers your life. Your cash reserve handles surprises. You were not forced to turn a temporary market decline into a permanent loss.
That gives the portfolio something it needs more than optimism: time. You keep contributing while prices are lower. The balance may fall further before it recovers, but the machine remains intact. This year changes how you define the crossover. Investments making more than your salary does not mean they become a salary. It means capital can eventually create more economic value while still moving through a much rougher path. One engine offers predictability. The other offers scale. You need both long enough for the second one to recover. And when the market finally does, the race resumes from a much larger base.
The market eventually recovers, and the portfolio begins climbing again. The loss did not disappear overnight, but the capital base survived long enough to keep compounding. Soon the portfolio reaches about $2 million. At a 7% return, that amount can produce roughly $140,000 in a normal year. Your salary is still higher, around $158,000. The gap is getting narrow. Then the portfolio grows to about $2.26 million. 7% of that is roughly $158,000, while your salary is around $163,000. For the first time, the two engines are almost equal. That matters because 20 years earlier, there was no race at all. Your $90,000 salary dwarfed the $10,500 your investments could produce. Your job funded the account. The account depended on the job. Now the relationship is almost balanced. Then another year passes. The portfolio reaches about $2.48 million. A 7% return on that amount is roughly $173,000. Your salary is about $167,000. For the first time in the model, your investments can create more in a normal year than your job pays you before taxes. Nothing dramatic happens when the numbers cross. You do not quit that afternoon. You do not walk into your boss's office or announce that work no longer matters. You sit through the same meetings, you answer the same emails, your direct deposit still arrives on schedule. But the financial structure underneath those routines is different. For decades, labor was the source and capital was the destination. You worked, saved, invested, and slowly built the base. Now, the base is large enough to reverse the relationship. The money your salary created has become capable of producing more than the salary itself. That is the real crossover. It is not proof that you should stop working. It is not a promise that the portfolio will beat your paycheck every year. A bad market can still send the account backward. Your salary remains more predictable. But capital now has something labor does not: scale. That difference is no longer abstract. You can see it in dollars now. A 1% move on $2.48 million is almost $25,000. A 7% year is larger than your entire gross salary. The job can still add new money. The portfolio can move more without asking for another hour of your time. That changes the meaning of every future paycheck. You once needed the salary to build the investments. Now the investments have become powerful enough to challenge the salary that built them. And from here, the question is no longer whether capital can catch your job. It is what happens when your job becomes the smaller engine. Your job does not disappear after the crossover. It still pays the bills, adds new money to the portfolio, and gives you benefits the market cannot provide. What changes is its position. For most of your adult life, salary sat at the center of everything. It determined what you could spend, what you could save, and how much risk you could tolerate. Now it is one engine among several. Your portfolio may create more value in a normal year than your job does, but you still do not treat that growth like guaranteed income. Some years will be strong, some will be flat, some will be painful. So you keep working, at least for now. The difference is that work feels less absolute. A bad manager has less leverage over you. A layoff would still be frustrating, but it would not erase the structure you spent decades building. A raise is still welcome, but it no longer feels like the only way your financial life can move forward. That changes the decisions you can make.
You can choose a role with better hours instead of chasing the highest salary. You can take more time off without wondering whether one missed paycheck will break the month. You can walk away from a toxic environment without starting from zero. The portfolio has not replaced your job. It has reduced the amount of power the job holds over you. That is a different kind of wealth. It is also why chasing the crossover too quickly can be dangerous. If you use leverage, concentrated bets, or reckless risk just to make investments beat salary sooner, you may destroy the engine before it becomes useful. The sequence matters. Salary builds capital. Capital gains scale. Scale creates optionality. Then one morning, you see the direct deposit hit your account. Years ago, that deposit was the most important financial event of the month. It paid for your life and funded almost every step forward. Now it still matters. It just no longer stands alone. The portfolio is larger. The capital base is stronger. More of your future depends on what you own, not only on what you earn. That does not make work meaningless. It makes work optional in a way it never was before. You can still earn, contribute, and grow. But for the first time, your financial future is no longer being carried by one paycheck alone. That is the shift. You spent years using your salary to build your investments. Eventually, your investments became powerful enough to outgrow the salary that created them. And that is the real crossover.